First I would like to thank God for my fight with Keith one time.
What up, fight world? It's your boy Ego, and I'm back with some more boxing. Manny Pacquiao defeats then undefeated Keith Thurman via split decision. Post-fight review. Let's talk about it. Now I'm in Vegas. Manny Pacquiao just defeated Keith Thurman, and he consolidated the WBA belts. He is the super champion, the WBA super champion. So I want to say congrats to Manny Pacquiao and kind of shed some light on my thoughts, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Make sure you guys subscribe and hit the like button. Now, the ending we'll do like Quentin Tarantino, start from the end. Some people thought the split decision was unnecessary. It should have been maybe a UD for Pacquiao. I thought Pacquiao won the fight. You know, it's debatable. I don't really see how you had Thurman winning, but he made it closer in the second half of the fight. But I thought the right man won, which is definitely most important. Is, you know, it can be just like Floyd Mayweather when he fought Canelo. One judge had it a draw, CJ Ross had it a draw, but the right person won. So, you know, that's definitely better than the right person losing. You know, I thought Pacquiao won. Good things for Pacquiao. Pacquiao at age 40 showed that he still has something left in the tank to beat somebody, you know, 10 years his junior, whatever age Keith Thurman is. And I thought the first half of this fight, Pacquiao looked, you know, really almost like vintage Pacquiao. And he was so everywhere. He was hitting Keith Thurman with some angles. And we're going to talk about, when I talk about the bad of Keith Thurman, I'm going to talk about that. One thing that Keith Thurman did that I thought was terrible was he allowed the veteran to do sneaky little subtle veteran tricks where he was dictating the terms, you know, in a particular round. And then from not fighting smart, he let the veteran come in, flurry, produce something big, you know, do this eye-catching shot that would score with the judges to potentially steal rounds, because some people, they look at stuff like that. If the round was already close, you know, or Keith Thurman was just boxing and it wasn't anything like flashy, when they see the Pacquiao, you know, the pizzazz and the jumping in and Keith Thurman's head and braids rocking back and stuff like that, then it doesn't leave a good impression on the judges. So they may be more inclined to shift that round to Pacquiao for the late flurry. And I think from the beginning of this fight, this was a problem from Keith Thurman, you know, and people get mad when we talk about it, but I got to bring up Floyd Mayweather. It really puts into perspective how special Floyd is, because Floyd is a talented and a very smart fighter. Pacquiao looked nothing like this. Pacquiao, several fights later, since the Floyd fight, Pacquiao has fought in a fight with Jeff Horn that was pretty much a war, and he's had fights like with Broner and stuff. Broner didn't do as bad in the first couple of rounds, and Mayweather fought Pacquiao before all these fights, and it didn't look like this. Styles make fights. Mayweather was able to totally neutralize and nullify Pacquiao's best weapons and slow him down. And I don't want to hear any like bullshit about shoulder injuries and shit like that. But bottom line, Keith Thurman, to me, he wasn't fighting smart throughout the fight. Again, subtle veteran tricks. You know, the guys who have been around, like Juan Manuel Marquez, Miguel Cotto when he was fighting Pacquiao, they have little subtle tricks. Bernard Hopkins is a master of this too. Cotto, Hopkins, you know, Mayweather uses his elbow sometimes. They have little subtle tricks that are, you know, fly below the radar, and little things to, you know, jockey for position. And Keith Thurman was falling victim to that throughout. Like, he was having some pretty good rounds, and then he would let Pacquiao get off, as opposed to if he slowed the tempo down in the last 30, 45 seconds of the round, then he clearly would have won the round. And this started from the first round. I thought Keith Thurman was having a pretty good round. I was definitely going to give him the round. And then out of nowhere, it looked like he got squared up, and then Pacquiao hit him with the fast-ass two-piece, bop, jumped in all crazy, and Keith Thurman fell straight back and got knocked down and looked like, oh, hell no, what the hell? You know, like he didn't even see it coming. And I did an interview, it's on my page. It says Pacquiao hits like a ton of bricks. This is precisely what was said in the video. How Pacquiao, this is a sparring partner of Pacquiao that flew out to the Philippines and was in camp with Pacquiao, is how Pacquiao has the ability to just jump in and go from 0 to 60, maybe even 0 to 80, you know, in a few seconds. And I noticed that about Pacquiao. One thing Pacquiao was doing very well in the first half of the fight is using that footwork and his speed and athleticism. He was closing the distance on Keith Thurman, and it was looking ugly for Keith Thurman in that first half of the fight, you know. And you know, I think Keith Thurman, he made it somewhat close towards the end because Pacquiao looked like his age and, you know, the hard shots of Thurman, because Thurman was, he, you know, towards the end he started throwing some pretty good singles, and, you know, he was picking off some shots. But ultimately, I think Keith Thurman, he really has no one to blame but himself for this loss. You know, at this point, it looked like he may have been able to beat Pacquiao, but he wasn't going to beat him playing Pacquiao's game. And I think he played Pacquiao's game, you know, or Pacquiao lured him into his game with that footwork in the first half of the fight. You know, Pacquiao was looking fast as fuck, jumping in, and it was looking real ugly for Keith Thurman. You know, at the end of round 2, Pacquiao did the Ali shuffle. You know, people look at stuff like that and they look at that as a symbol of who's in control. And Keith Thurman really had no answers in the first half for a lot of this stuff. He got knocked down. That's a 10-8 round. Pacquiao's out here looking fast as quick and jumping in and backing you up and catching you with shots. You know, Pacquiao's super awkward. He's just jumping in and moving and pivoting, side step, changing level. He's just real fidgety. And his ability to close distance with his power, Keith Thurman was getting lined up with that straight left. And, you know, Pacquiao's right hand had improved since back in the day, the Marco Antonio Barrera fight and stuff with Freddie Roach. And I think he was off. Keith Thurman was off to a bad start in this whole fight with the first round knockdown, because that's how discouraging is that? A round you would have won and then you get dropped at the, you know, last 20 seconds of the fight or of the round, you know. And I think ultimately Thurman was letting Pacquiao in the first half get off first, dictate too much, and do his own thing. And I think what he needed to do was keep a jab in Pacquiao's face, you know, because Pacquiao's movement is crazy. Keep that jab in his face. That's easier to get off because there's up jabs, there's different types of jabs. And that'll be a stiff punishing shot to at least keep Pacquiao at bay or make him uncomfortable to just come in, make him plot how he's going to come in through the front door. And he didn't really do that. So I think Keith Thurman in the first 6 rounds or whatnot, he needed a jab. He should have planted body shots. Just make Pacquiao's 40. Make him feel every bit of his age. Jab to stop all that jumping in shit. Feint. And he didn't have it together. Pacquiao was busting him up. Then it got to a point in the fight where Keith Thurman's nose was bleeding. These are all telltale signs, and whether we like it or not, that's how people, they look at that. They're like, oh shit, you know, Thurman's getting busted up. Another thing that I've told you guys that I don't like from Thurman is Keith Thurman, he reminds me of Shane Mosley. I'm not talking about the fighter, I'm not talking about the resume or anything, but he reminds me of Shane Mosley for this very reason. He reminds me of Shane Mosley because they wear their emotion on their sleeves as a boxer. Like, if you watch the Shane Mosley Floyd Mayweather fight, when Mayweather was stinging Shane with, like, you know, flush rights, Shane Mosley's like shaking his head like, damn, like mad and upset that he's getting caught with that. We've seen this from Keith Thurman. Every time he gets hurt, it's so apparent. Everybody in the world can see that he's hurt. versus other guys, they have more of a poker face. They're probably in excruciating pain. Ruslan Provodnikov, for example, and different guys, they're in excruciating pain. However, they hold it better. I mean, even Pacquiao himself, he's one of the people. I know some of that shit Thurman in the second half was hitting him with hurt. Keith Thurman's a puncher, and he was landing some flush shots. He started picking his shots. I want to say around 6 through 9, right around those rounds, Thurman picked up the pace, and that's what made it close. You know, he definitely made it close in those moments. But, you know, you're not going to, Keith Thurman wasn't going to win the fight like this. He just wasn't. Coming off to that slow of a start and letting Pacquiao dictate, and Pacquiao, to his credit, his beard, when he was getting hit, you know, Pacquiao's experienced too. When he was getting hit with shit, I know some of it hurt, but he played it off. Like, he would bang his glove. You know, these are telltale signs Pacquiao showed throughout his career that he didn't like that shot, you know. But he holds it and contains it a little bit better. There was a moment in round 10, I want to say, where Keith Thurman got hit with a shot, looked like a body shot, and all of a sudden he just folded, similar to Luis Collazo. We've seen it with Shane Mosley, and we've seen it with Jose Cito Lopez. When he gets hurt, everybody knows it's instantaneous. And then in that round 10, Pacquiao seen that. He's right there, front and center, and Pacquiao seen that and tried to jump on him and start firing off a million punches. So to me, I don't really want to hear anything. I picked Pacquiao to win. Ego Stradamus yet again. I don't want to hear anything because Keith Thurman had the ability and time on his side to maybe make this play out a little bit different, but he really has himself to blame once he watches the tape again, because he wasn't doing certain things. And then to think, Pacquiao said, Keith Thurman said he's okay if Pacquiao takes Novada and takes PEDs. All right. Because Pacquiao was looking crazy in the first half of the fight, you know, and Keith Thurman was getting split up. So, you know, that was a dumb statement from Keith Thurman, which is what I told you, new media, Ego Stradamus. That was dumb to say, oh, I don't care if Pacquiao's on something, because in the first couple rounds when Pacquiao's energy was at the highest, that gave Thurman the most problems. Now, the good thing for Thurman, I think he saved face in the second half of the fight. Again, around round 6, definitely 7. I think 7 was one of the rounds for him. He had some consecutive rounds, like 7, 8, 9, something like that, where he did some really good work. He was trying out different things and walking Pacquiao down. He was hitting Pacquiao throughout the fight throughout the second half of the fight, I guess you could say. He hit Pacquiao with some real solid right hands, and I know they probably didn't feel good, but again, Pacquiao contained himself a lot better than Keith Thurman. Keith Thurman walked back the round, I think it was round 10, where it looked like he was visibly hurt by the body. He walked back to the corner, and it looked like his nose was bleeding and leaking. He was breathing heavy. I think he even had his gum shield mouthpiece out. So I think the story of the fight was just the experience of Pacquiao, the fast start of Pacquiao. Pacquiao got out the gates a lot quicker than Keith Thurman. And then to top it off, to boot, Thurman has some really, really like solid rounds, nothing crazy, but Pacquiao, having experience, having a chin, he was able to not show as much. His vulnerability, he was able to contain it a lot better than Keith Thurman. And I think that plays on how the judges see the fight. And then on top of that, as I mentioned, Keith Thurman was letting rounds slip away by an age-old veteran tactic where somebody tries to steal the round late. You know, you don't see guys like Floyd Mayweather and Andre Ward allow that. So I really think Keith Thurman kind of fought the wrong fight in the first half of the fight. He's going toe-to-toe. He needed to slow that pace down drastically, because if he would have won and did better and more methodical in the early rounds, Pacquiao definitely looked like he slowed down, and this would have made the fight close. Pacquiao definitely slowed down in the second half of the fight, and he was breathing heavier, and, you know, he's 40 years old. You could tell he's not the same spring chicken. All that energy he expelled punching Thurman, and Thurman still being here, it affected him. And that's kind of what happens with Father Time. But yeah, with Thurman's nose bleeding, him kind of succumbing to the body shot, and it's just, these are easy ways to, even the rounds where he was doing all right, give the round to Pacquiao. I thought Thurman had a good round 7. Pacquiao started to gas. He looked like he was gassed out a little bit around that point. Keith Thurman, he looked real good in round 7. That's like his strong, and that's where he kind of started to close it up, like make it closer and stuff like that. I thought it was a good round. But again, he made the same mistake over and over. Certain rounds that were close were too close. And then some people are going to bring up CompuBox and whatnot. They're going to say, oh, but Keith Thurman landed more. But he didn't land that much more. And Pacquiao's punches looked more authoritative, and it looked like they did more damage, or at least Pacquiao made it appear like it did less damage. I mean, you could see Pacquiao's face at the end of the fight. He got hit some, but again, having a better poker face versus Keith Thurman. Every time he was hurt or shocked or got stung, got hit to the body, you could see it a lot more. Another thing I think Keith Thurman should have did was an uppercut. Pacquiao's a sitting duck for that. Mayweather caught Pacquiao jumping in with that reckless shit. So, Pacquiao, at the end of the day, he's the same. He's the same fighter. If Floyd Mayweather fights Pacquiao again, I wouldn't pick Pacquiao to win, especially with what I've seen, because I think Mayweather's style, even though he's been out of the ring, is going to age more gracefully. He's not going to jump in and do all that. Mayweather's a sharpshooter. And then as far as Keith Thurman, he lost. They were both classy at the end of the fight, post-fight commentators, but I don't like the way he responds to the adversity. Like, he just lets the whole world know. Like when he got hit with that body shot, he got hit with a body shot, and you instantly see him fold up, just like Luis Collazo. You see him like moving around, moving all about, and different shit like that. And this lets me know 100% as far as Keith Thurman, still a good fighter, but the Errol Spence fight would be terrible for Keith Thurman, because that body is like the glass house. And what does Errol Spence do well? He targets the body. So I don't think that would have ever been a good fight at any recent point for Keith Thurman. And to me, I think Terrence Crawford and Errol Spence, they're not going to look like that versus Manny Pacquiao. I think it was a fun fight, but Keith made some mistakes in there where he could have kind of had things going his way a lot more. But all in all, it was a fun fight. I think Fox did a great job promoting the fight. Pacquiao had a very strong performance, whether you thought it was a split decision or a unanimous decision. Either way, I thought Pacquiao won. I thought Pacquiao looked better. I thought Pacquiao hid his vulnerabilities better, and Keith Thurman just didn't. And he got off to the type of start you don't want to get into with a fighter like Pacquiao, where you're in the hole. Because I'm not saying this is right, but you know how the game goes. Pacquiao's a legend. So those too close for comfort rounds, you know who they're going to give to, especially with Pacquiao, showing enough energy to jump around and clip you with some shots at the last 30 seconds. Because Keith Thurman, it's not like he did any. Like, he was doing singles. He was doing singles, barring a couple spots. He was doing singles. So I think Pacquiao definitely deserved the victory. And really, Keith Thurman, it's not that he didn't have the tools. He didn't have the experience and the drive to push forward and walk through the fire enough to pull that out. He just couldn't. So, I can't blame anybody else but Keith Thurman, especially with all the stuff that Keith Thurman said beforehand. He said he's going to knock Pacquiao in the first round. It just sounded diluted. That didn't sound realistic, and he didn't sound reasonable. And I noticed Pacquiao puts guys, he makes them fight he's just a good fighter. He makes them fight his type of fight. And the thing is, Keith Thurman, after all that talk about knocking out Pacquiao and retire him, he did all that stuff to promote the fight. But at the end of the day, he got up in there, and in spots he froze up and he waited trying to time Pacquiao with the big shot. Pacquiao don't stop, especially in them early rounds, especially with you telling him not to do VADA testing, and you don't care if he does or doesn't. You know, Pacquiao, he's too aggressive, and he's not gonna sit there and wait for you. Because even like he just can turn it on. He can just turn it up. He's like a sports car, a Porsche, Ferrari, or some shit. He just can get up. Because as soon as Keith Thurman got clipped in the 10th round and hurt with the body shot, Pacquiao was all over him. So Pacquiao, he beat him. That's just what it is. And I think based on the pre-fight talk that Keith Thurman had, he should have had a more strategic, smarter game plan to actually beat Pacquiao, because I didn't see what it was. And again, even the rounds where he was doing solid, I think Pacquiao had a better poker face, and Keith Thurman didn't, and he kind of gave up some of the spots and rounds. You know how it is going against a legend. So that's my thoughts. I'll give you guys some more of my thoughts. I'm here in Vegas, but it was definitely a fun fight. I like the way it was promoted and handled, and I don't know. It is what it is. Let me know what you guys think. Drop your thoughts in the comment section. We working.
So if you enjoyed this video and want more content like this on the channel, you can show your appreciation by going to the PayPal donate button or the YouTube support button, and you can donate any amount that you feel is equivalent to the value of this video. Much more to come. Thank you guys for your support. Boxing Ego, the future of boxing.